Hello, everyone. It's about 5 o'clock. Um, we've been having a lot of internet and even electricity issues after the wind that swept through last week. We've had a lot of trees down, had a lot of line damage done in our area. So they're like even replacing like entire roadways and hanging new lines. But I've been so sick, I've not really been on the internet a lot anyway. Uh, Hi, Gypsy. I'm doing an update. I just got done with nursing and doctors and all that jazz. After a lot of the swelling subsided from my last flare, many, if you new guys here don't know, I have reflex sympathetic dystrophy from a trauma incident that occurred oh gosh, 20 something years ago, 20 years ago. And so I go in and out of flares, much like MS flares, only mine are a little bit more vicious, cause a lot of swelling, discoloration. My muscles will even contract to the point of doing damage. So I've been under the weather. We'll just say that I've been under the weather. Um, but after the initial swelling, like the extra additional swelling from my RSD flare, is starting to subside. We have found a large hematoma on my back, and so we're thinking maybe that is either what started the flare, either I damaged something, or we don't really know. But it's dissipating, and every day is getting less uncomfortable, so that's a good thing. We're just trying to watch what's going on because I know I'm getting better. I know I'm improving because it was in both hip joints, and now it's just in the right one under where the hematoma is. So we're just trying to watch and make sure I'm not running temperatures and make sure it's, not anything other than a hematoma. So I'm going to have some testing and stuff done. But um, today's better. Now, I expect tomorrow to be horrible because they're saying weather's going to come through here, severe weather. So I expect tomorrow to be a horrible day with my disorder. So you probably won't hear from me again for a few days. So y'all don't worry. I'm just really going through it right now. Um, but we'll get through it. Just take it a day at a time, and we'll get through it. Everybody is messaging me going, "Did you see Ron's Instagram stuff from yesterday?" I actually had a few of you send me links, and I was so happy to click on those links and see that he's in like financial group meetings with people that can help him keep an eye on everything the way it needs to be monitored. So, what I see when I look at this, even though I try to be like the neutral person and try to make you look at both sides a lot, and I try to help you get the bigger picture and understand that there's tons of ways to view this, tons of ways to kind of come at this, tons of lessons to learn. But what I took away from yesterday is that he's taking active steps to improve the conditions that had faltered that got him here. So he's doing the cleanup that needs to be done, and I'm extremely happy to see that. That makes me feel so much better. I'm glad that he is like taking the time to put those safeties in check so that he doesn't have to experience this again because this is not anything anyone should want to repeat. So that made me happy. Looks like he's being very productive and focused, so I'm really happy about that. I have no idea why we're talking about noodles, but okay. Um, but he looks like he's doing well, huh, Annette? So for everybody sending me all the links and stuff, yeah, I see it. He's doing productive and um, like he's going after things that are going to make sure he doesn't have to experience this again. He doesn't. He's not ever at the whim of someone that has the ability to use his finances inappropriately. So I'm in support of all that. I think he is making sure that he's taking steps to shrink the circle of people that have the power to harm him. And that's sad to have to say out loud, but I think he's going to be better for it. I think when the business side of things calm back down, I think he'll kind of realize this was really a good step. I wish I'd done it years ago, you know. I think he had good intentions by trying to, like, take care of his family and put his family in positions, you know, you're supposed to be able to trust people, but we also know that's one of the biggest catch-22s is placing family in employment positions, and money normally always causes problems. So I'm glad that he's taking all these shortcuts to make sure that he's not going to have to experience this again. I have no idea what is it, Sunblind Slaves is? I have no idea. So, they're speaking a language I don't speak, so, okay, bye. Apparently the other night he shared my video, and it got, like, up to, like, almost 3,000 views, and he removed it. I don't know, I was too sick to care, didn't really see what the, I didn't see what any of the comments or anything. I didn't know until it was gone, and somebody had just screenshot it to say, hey, he did this. I have no idea. That was one where I was really trying to make sure I represented both sides and tried to give you as many viewpoints as possible. And, you know, I'm just trying to make people think as opposed to react, because it's a better way to go through life, is to have an intelligent reaction as far as, when compared to an emotional one. So it's like trying to give like the biggest overall view possible. It's been really difficult for the last few weeks because nobody wants to hear like intelligent conversation, or nobody wants to be reminded that there's more than just one person suffering right now, and that, you know, we kind of all need to look at the whole bigger picture and learn from it if we can. I mean, if he's going to display the stuff on public domain, we should at least learn from it. That's like the best thing you can do. Hi, Ashley. And so I'm hoping there's a lot of families that maybe have seen some red flags from all of this and have taken the time to communicate and say, hey, we're not gonna be here because we're taking care of it now. That's my hope. And I hope that Ryan gets everything secured so that he doesn't find himself here again. And that he continues to make better decisions as far as his business acumen and stuff. Now, I can't imagine how difficult that is because I've never had money worth worrying about. So, kudos to him for stepping up and taking care of stuff. That's a big step. A lot of people were like really upset that I wasn't harder on Miss Patty's video than I was. And I really, honestly, I think that picking her apart right now is just kind of useless because I feel like she's kind of in like this free fall to where nothing's gone right and none of the power displays are functioning correctly. And I feel like she's kind of in this scorned position where life is kind of falling apart. And I certainly don't want to add to that for her. And that's not what I'm here for. But at the same time, I absolutely, from a mother perspective, can look at her and be like, wow, that was very inappropriate and condescending. And for me, I kind of feel like she's offloading responsibility for her behaviors and her actions and trying to like lay blame everywhere else that within her, and she's the one that had the ability and the control and the power to make those decisions and allow those decisions to be made, whether it was signing off to make somebody assistant, whatever, on the account, or approving payments for certain things. That was her behavior, her action, and she needs to stop throwing blame. Like when you go to court, I have to look at this as like from the legal standpoint because I don't want to be emotionally sucked up in it. But if you look at somebody, if somebody else had done to Ryan what she's done, it was like if somebody else had sold or purchased and sold that many homes without someone else knowing that that much money was going through the account and that those homes were being purchased and resold or signed over or something was going on there, that would be a huge criminal fiasco. And there is like no way to defend yourself on the stand if you're spending someone else's money and you did not have the approval or you went above and beyond your powers within your contract. It's a very black or white issue in some regards. Did she overstep her business powers, and did she take advantage of being able to access finances? Those are two questions that either Ryan or a judge will have to answer. I don't know. But take their family out of it. If it happened to anyone else, what would be going on right now? Well, because of the finances involved, in most smaller areas, if somebody reported this to the police, normally a state prosecutor would pick it up because it's felony level, and it's not a victimless crime. There's a victim. There's multiple victims. So normally a state prosecutor would pick it up and run with it. So, I don't know what's going to happen with this. I don't know which way it's going to go. I don't know if there's going to be, some other resolution, but it sure is a mess. I'm better today, Snuggle. I'm still bed bound. I'm still on bed rest, and we think we found out what's going on with what has made this flare so super psychotic. Because now that some of the swelling is going down, we found a huge hematoma on my back, and sadly, it's right on top of a bunch of nerve bundles, and it's causing a whole lot of issues with my disorder, and my body is not responding well. So I'm very sick right now. Very, very sick. So this is just a quick check-in, but I'm getting better. Like today is much better than last Friday. So I just have to kind of remember to measure accordingly and make sure each day is incrementally better, because if I just think I'm still feeling bad, I will just kind of free fall and just think I'm never going to see the end of this. But I am getting better, and I'm hoping in another few days I'll be able to be up and about. So hoping that happens. Everybody keeping up on the Ohio train wreck. I know a lot of people here in my small area are like, "What train wreck?" And I'm like, "Are you serious? Do you not ever read the news?" So in Ohio, is it East Palestine, Ohio? There was a train wreck that 20 miles before it actually derailed and wrecked. On security camera, they caught it passing an area on fire. So the fire was going for quite a while. Obviously, there was a long-term issue that had the conductor noticed or been aware of and stopped the train, all of this could have been prevented. So the train apparently had some very nasty chemicals aboard, apparently more than what was registered and reported. And so they thought that the best way to handle this was a burn-off, which I question everything. That's tell you all question everything, even me. Go do your research and look all this up for yourself. But they're doing a big burn-off, and it is horrible. Yeah, it's a disaster of absolutely epic proportions. Um, there's like wildlife within a certain radius, wildlife, domestic animals, and other things like just dead. But the EPA and the USDA, everybody keeps saying, "Oh, it's fine, people, it's fine. Go back home, just test your water." And it's so I've been trying to watch that a little bit as I'm able to be up, because that is terribly interesting. There was a wreck like this, but not to this caliber, back in 1984, and for the life of me, I can't remember where now. But it was a very similar chemical issue. I don't remember if they chose to burn it off or it just caught a fire, but very similar, and we're still seeing the repercussions of that. if you look at all the data and the scientific crap that has come in since then, the area is still suffering from it. And well, I read so much about this and I can't even remember where it was. Um, but that was in 1984, almost 40 years ago. So I'm looking at this one, which is much worse, and wondering what are the long-term ramifications of this going to be. And are we seeing people handle this appropriately? I know that, to my knowledge, while they're telling everybody everything's okay, there's actually been no three-letter agency feet on the ground at the site. They're making remote decisions based on what other people, all the other information that other people are sending them. So that's curious. And I don't know, it just seems very lax. Like if this had happened 3 or 4 years ago, this would have been a huge story and the blame game would be going on. And so I'm wondering, I've got people that are not even able to access stories on this. Like it takes them a while to finally find it in search engines when they go looking for it. And there's only a few online news agencies doing stories on it. Oh no, it's not the first one. This is, that I think what is it? There are, oh gosh, there are hundreds of derailments each year across our nation. I think close to 1,000 each year, if I remember correctly. What makes this one so bad, I guess, is the conglomerate of the chemicals that were on board. But you think we learn eventually from past behavior that, hey, this is not a good thing. But it seems like humans cannot compost and funnel information and come up with a clear idea that this is not good. Do not practice this behavior. It does not end well. Humanity seems to have a really big problem with learning what lines not to cross again. It's so funny when we see everything that's happened, and yet our government still willfully has certain behaviors that we know are going to not end well. So it shocks me sometimes. But I'm really concerned because I have several friends that are in that area, and they are just confused. They're like, it's just mass confusion up here. There's not one clear feedback corridor from, up on high. We're not getting a lot of local information about what to do, and a lot of it is at your discretion, which is one of those things where, a lot of people don't have the funds or the ability to leave. So if it's at the discretion of the public, many people will choose to stay because then they think it's not that bad. And since they don't have the funds to really stretch to leave, they don't want to go anywhere. And since it's not mandated, then federal dollars can't come in. State and federal dollars can't come in to help pick up the tab for a lot of these families that need to evacuate. So it's very concerning what we're seeing go on. Hi, Leva Cats. So I've been watching, that's the only story I've been really following, and the two agencies that have spoke on this the match, of course, Temple talks about it. Redacted, the channel on YouTube, has been putting out stuff about it, and I think Stephen Gardner's channel did a spot on it as well. But there's still so many people that have not a clue that this train wreck even occurred, or that there have been 2 or 3 more since then, derailments. And while derailments are not something that, is infrequent, they happen a lot, it's still odd if you start, I know this is getting into one of those rabbit hole things, but if you start looking at the most recent derailments, the location of them, most of them are happening in rural farm areas. So I'm like, what's produced there? What comes from there? What do we need to be watched? It's going to be shipped nation or worldwide. And are they even going to put a warning label for anything coming from that area because of this potential issue? And so I'm just trying to watch this and look at a whole bunch of different opinions and ideas about what may be impacted and be prepared. And I guess that's what I do. I step back and try to look at a whole picture and try not to run and follow my emotions. I try to look at the whole thing. And I think that's why I frustrate a lot of people as well, because I will not, get on here and just be super hateful. Um, but y'all don't think I'm not just like y'all, that I have absolute personal beliefs and responses to the energy and the behaviors I've been seeing out of the Ryan and Patty ordeal. I absolutely do. And I'm of the mindset that, yeah, he does stuff that concerns me. And I'll always say this concerns me. But he also is normally the first one to come around and like self-evaluate and try to reconfigure. And like I've said, if the family was the bulk of his problem, if that was a lot of the issues that were being thrown at him, then now since he's kind of broken away and put up better fences, we should see a quick, direct improvement in his world behavior and occurrences and happenings. Hi, Fang. Hi, Denise. We've got Annette and everybody in here. Um, so I hope things improve for him. I think he's setting up good precautionary measures, and I think that's a positive. I'm not seeing a lot of positives from the other side. I'm seeing actually a lot of negatives, and that's concerning because she is twice his age. She's older than me and should have a better understanding of how to handle a big life event like this, but I'm not seeing a lot of positive behaviors or even positive responses from her side. And I wish I was seeing better responses from her side. The video that I talked about the other night worried me from a mother perspective because she contradicted herself several times. This was finally so bad, and she acted like, I'm so shocked that this is occurring, and I'm going to have to leave in the middle of the night because that's how people have to leave these things when these things happen. But then she basically said, oh, it's nothing new. It's been going on for years. It's just basically more expensive now. And so to me, that flipped a red flag, and I said, well, wait. Is this so new and so scary that you're fixing to flee for your life, or is it so repetitive it's just more financially driven now is that why we're speaking about it now? Because I look at that and go, okay, you're telling me that this has always occurred, and you have always been the parent, and normally the residential parent that's had these kids. If it was something that was happening a lot, should you not have exercised your parental authority to help those kids understand what was occurring so that behaviors could be changed, decision-making skills could be, improved, and they could have got some coping skills along there as well so that as adults they're not having the same problem. So if it was truly going on since they were kids, well, kids are a product of their environment. Kids learn by imitation. Kids learn through mimicry. So it's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Because in one instance, she says this is so new and scary that she's going to have to flee for her life in the middle of the night. And then in the next breath, this is nothing new. It's been going on forever. Okay. You've also been the parent forever. So before all those kids reach 18, it's your priority to help fix and repair these issues so that they don't expect them and have to handle them as adults. So has there been an attempt to repair this type of behavior before? No one talked about that. So the contradictions in her video were kind of annoying at times. And some of the phrasing she stated struck me as laying the foundation for like litigation and future stuff like that. Like, I'm going to state this here because it reads really well in reports and court documentation, and certain things are almost looked for in speaking phrases and word choice when you go to court. So a lot of judges will look for certain things. And so a lot of people have picked up on that, and so they'll start throwing that vernacular in before they ever get to court, that they're laying a groundwork. When what you really do is like showing your hand before you go to court, that you had an idea that this was something that was going to end up in court. And that normally has a catch-22, because while you think it's improving the way you're viewing this so that you can handle it better when you get to court, a judge is going to look at it and say, you knew you were headed to court and you chose not to repair it. You wanted to end up here. So it's like that, that's one of those catch-22s. Is it going to help or hurt? Depends on the judge you get. So it's just like, this is all so weird. Crossroads says, I find all these grown men that supposedly have other responsibilities are telling another grown man how to run his life and how to act. Is it just me? I think one of the hardest things it is to be right now in the world is a man. Well, I don't know. We can't even define what a woman is anymore, so maybe that's the hardest thing to be, since we can't define it. Um, I think we've grown into a nation, or even a society, of excuses. So there's always an excuse. There's always someone else to blame our behavior on except for ourselves. And men, especially single white males, are really the population that is thrown under the bus a lot. And men in general, are not supposed to be strong or self-reliant anymore. We're almost saying that masculinity is a negative. But it's so necessary when it comes to role models within society. We need those strong, hard, protector role models within our society. It's a necessary recipe ingredient for a happy society. But we've got people that are trying to shape our society forcefully. That's why we see all the new vocabulary and the change in what words mean, and even how we see our own parts of our language. Like, look at how pronouns have they've just, I was going to say transition. Well, no, I guess that's appropriate. Pronouns have transitioned over the last 10 years to be something that we never thought a pronoun would be. So it's just like the world is kind of all going crazy. Well, yeah. I mean, and a lot of it is, people can readily give their opinion, and they can do that easily. But if you look at a lot of the opinions and a lot of the viewpoints that have grown in traction in the last 20 years, a lot of it is opinions that have like no scientific basis, no background in research. A lot of people have no data to throw out to support their belief or their way of thinking, their opinion. And so we've grown into, if it's got traction and I have a big enough crowd, I can believe anything and shove it down your throat. And we used to be a research, empirical data, and a statistical spectrum over decades is kind of how we understand things, and that is no more. We are not a scientific nation anymore. We're not a scientific world anymore. We are an emotional world, and it's so sad, because I was actually having a conversation with someone the other day, and they were trans, and they wanted me to basically be a bigot. And I was like, I'm not a bigot. I understand the framework in all of this and what can be changed because the framework changes. And I think that you all may not understand the changes that you can implement within our world because you have a need that needs to be met, as opposed to all these other, billions and billions of people have a need that need to be met. How do we balance out that need to meet the most needs possible, as opposed to catering to one or two? And I think societies sometimes, we have to do that, for the greater good. It's kind of like we have to meet the needs of as many people as we can when we're making our rules and our laws and that stuff. It doesn't mean we don't have compassion and care for these people that are like the extenuating circumstance, but they also can't forget about being the extenuating circumstance and that there are so many more people that have to be recognized. Recognition has really become, the mirror image. We don't see anyone else anymore. We see the mirror image of ourselves. We don't respect anyone else's lifestyle, beliefs, anything like that. So they really wanted me to be a bigot, and they were like, "Well, there's nowhere else. There's nowhere on this earth that anyone should be held accountable for believing they are whatever they want to be." And I said, "No, whoa, that's a wide breath. We have to have certain restrictions and accountabilities to function as a society. So we have to be able to communicate. To communicate, we have to have parameters for our words to make sense. So therefore, we can't just go willy-nilly changing everything that everything means." And they were absolutely telling me that this extended into the animal kingdom, and there were grizzly bears that knew they were female that were forced to act as male because of natural instincts that they could not deny. And I was just kind of like sitting here going, "This is what you tell yourself at night when you could have rational thoughts." I was just kind of having a moment, I was like, "Okay." And they said there's nowhere, because I was like, well, that can, if you start changing all these meanings, all these words, especially around the animal kingdom, and you open up this gate, there's going to be a lot of prosecutorial backwash that occurs. And they were like, "No, no one can go to court and sue somebody because they don't believe in gender, the construct of gender." And I said, "In any regard?" "In any regard." And I said, "Okay." I said, "You go to a livestock barn and sell what you identify as a bull, which is biologically a steer, to a man who's trying to buy a bull to breed his heifers and cows at his ranch. And when he loads up that what you listed and identified as a bull and notices he's a steer, he's going to turn around and take you to court." And this may be how I learned that a lot of this falls to ignorance. Because then that person replied and said, "Well, I don't know why he would fuss about getting a steer. They're more docile and easier to handle." I said, "Yes, but if he's breeding to his heifers and cows, then that destroys his entire breeding program, and he paid money for only something that's a yard ornament or going to freezer camp. He didn't pay for anything that's going to help reproduce and make his herd grow." And I said, that's just point blank. And this person was like, "What do you mean?" "You do understand that a steer cannot reproduce." They had no idea. No idea. So while they were trying to tell me the biological framework for nature and everything else, they did not understand the biological framework of nature and everything else. And I got really kind of tickled at that. And it was very frustrating to try to have a conversation with someone that did not even understand that a bull can reproduce, a steer cannot. And that's why if you sell a steer as a bull, somebody could come back and sue you, because you misrepresented your stock. I have no problem with anybody either. Like 18 over, go live your life. But when you start to try to change and shape the world to be a mirror image of you, as opposed to reflect the conglomerate of everyone within it, that's when I start having problems. Is when we start to really try to mold and reshape and cut out other people's viewpoints because we are only able to have one. So my friend group has got every kind of representation possible. I have a very eclectic, diverse friend group, and I get along with all of them because I'm kind of looking at your heart and how you treat people. I'm not looking at what you do behind closed doors. But I've noticed in the past 3 to 5 years that it's become a very aggressive standpoint that you must not only accept, but almost become like a little ambassador for other lifestyles that are different than yours, or you will be called horrendous names. And I'm like, but if we were just ambassadors for what we enjoyed, then we would basically be, you know, very aware of what we're speaking about because we live that life, and we wouldn't put our foot in our mouths. We wouldn't make erroneous statements. We wouldn't get super emotional and feel so attached. We would just be like, this is my life. This is how I live. I'll share it with you, and you can tell me how you live, But it's kind of like you need to be your own little ambassador. You don't need to be going out and trying to change other people and change the world. Just be who you are and be an ambassador for you. And if everybody is an ambassador for themselves, it like levels out eventually. What we have now is overrepresentation of the most small group in society. And it's like the 2,000-pound bull running away from a gnat. We're so imbalanced as a society. Oh, you're home, Nina. I'm glad you made it home. Well, and they even came up there. I know there are bachelor groups in the wild. I said, yeah, there are always bachelor groups because as the dominant male pushes the younger males off, they form bachelor groups. And I said, and you'll see them have displays of authority. And I said they'll use some breeding behavior to have dominance displays. I said they will always, when the female of that breed comes into estrus, they will always choose a female. They will always try to find a female. So you have to be able to look at, if you're going to call me on one thing, you have to be able to look at the whole animal behavior. And they were like, well, basically, they were trying to tell me that animals were just like humans. And I was like, no, they're not. A lot of animals mate for life. I said, like hawks, eagles. There's a lot of things that mate for life that, you would not think, monogamy was a thing in the wild, but it's very much a thing in the wild. You have a lot of, if you've ever worked cattle farms and horse farms, you'll know that some mares, as you cycle through the studs, or somebody chooses different bulls or studs for a breeding program, you'll notice certain heifers and certain cows will be more submissive to some males and less submissive to others, and you can tell when there's something going on there. But also, they didn't understand, like when I was, and I was like, well, in nature, it's not as big of a deal. Sexual behavior in nature is not as big of a deal. And they're like, why? And I was like, because many animals only come into estrus once a year. And they're like, what? And they're not like humans in that regard. They have the biological urge to reproduce normally once to twice a year, and the twice comes in if they miss and are not bred on that first estrus, then another will kick in. So they didn't even know that occurred. Like right now, bobcats and coyotes and foxes are all trying to find a girlfriend. They're all going crazy because this is their big breeding season. And so that's why the woods have been absolutely alive for the last couple of months, because everything was coming in to heat that breeds this time of year. Um, White-tailed deer have their first rut right after fall and early winter, and then they have a secondary rut to catch the does that weren't bred the first rut. So, it's animals do not reflect the same behavior that we do. And so to think that it's a natural found across the animal kingdom is very wrong. Like, just data point wise, it's very wrong. But nobody will sit and try to answer their own questions. They'll come up with these absurd remarks, but they won't go and try to find the information so that they don't have these absurd remarks. And so when I find myself, and I'm just going to be completely rude for just a minute, this is the one time I'm going to be completely rude. and totally do what I tell you to never do. But I find myself when I'm talking to somebody with rainbow hair, 1411 nose and facial piercings, 4 or 5 college degrees, but never has worked a full time job, never had a mortgage, never paid a bill. These are the people that I also have a hard time explaining just nature to. Like what should be a prominent reality because it's right outside your door. It's something that's almost concrete. We all grow up in it. We all have watched all the nature films in school. We all have all these documentaries and learning material at our hands, but we don't take time to delve into it and actually learn it. We shape it to what we want it to be. And that's the profile of the people that I normally see trying to shape society. And that was the profile of the individual the other day, um, that was trying to tell me that if a farmer that went to the livestock sale to buy a bull bought a steer, he should be happy because the steer was easier to handle and more docile. Well, yeah, but the steer can't make babies. That's why he bought a bull. you know. So when you have to go back and teach someone such simple basics, you know that they have no foundation for what they've concocted. And that should be a huge warning sign that this is going to fail. This is not a long term anything. It's a flash in the bucket. It's going to fail. HBR says more people should be hearing this because you break this down so well. Well, that's what I do. I step back from things and I pull them apart so I can understand them. Rather than fall in love with the whole, I would rather fall in love with 3,000 parts of the whole because I know then that I understand what I'm in love with. And that's why I like to tell y'all to step back and see the bigger picture and look at things. And yeah, I get emotional. It made me really upset to know that these boys had been raised by a mother who had not heeded warning signs, who had not handled repetitious bad behavior, who had not taken the time to improve the quality of her children's life as adults by teaching them better skill sets and not given them a better role model to mimic. It irritates me too. But we don't need more irritation in the world. We need more people to have a wider view so that we're seeking the things that we can understand instead of seeking the things that we can just hate, or have power with. And so a lot of people have been like, well, you've not been in blind support of Ryan. Well, I'm sorry. I think Ryan can take care of himself. I think he's very adept at controlling his world when he knows what in the heck's going on. He just needs to know what in the heck's going on a little more often. And I think, like I've said several times, this was his awakening. He's in his 30s, where a lot of young men finally establish themselves and power over their little dominion. You can no longer claim the ignorance of juvenile um, years, but you're not like a truly seasoned male, but you're establishing yourself, and he's establishing himself. And because of his fame and the time in his life that fame was interjected, his kind of timeline is a little different than what other people in societies may be, but he's still doing it, and I think he's making positive changes right now. Do I see things that I'm still concerned about? Well, yeah, but he's a human being, so there's always going to be a level of concern. But I'm absolutely, flabbergasted. I'm just gonna. It flabbergasted me that anyone could say anything kind. Here's the thing. This is what really irritates me. Is she got up on the internet and apologized for Ryan bullying people on the internet. I have tried to support her in her vintage stuff because I enjoy that stuff. So I thought, okay, I'll support her in this. She seems like a sweet person. I've tried to support her in that. I tried to support her in the Tamara and Positivity group. But what I realized was when you went to the positivity talks, a lot of times it devolved into but they're not positive, so go ahead on them talk. And I was like, I'm not for this. Um, I even in one live was like, how about we talk about the kind of people we met today or the good things that happened today as opposed to avoid these negative people. It just was seeming in a better mindset with positivity to just talk about the positive things rather than you're likely to be positive if you avoid these people. That seems backhanded, if you ask me. So I kind of stepped out of that group. I felt something was amiss there. But sometimes when you get two or more people together, personalities create this weird little vibe. And I thought, well, we'll see how it prolongs and how they settle down or what it turns into. And I might be back. I don't know. Well, then it completely devolved into nothing. And to be quite honest, I don't even know how that friendship is going now. I don't see any, like, Tamara's like blipped off the radar. And so if I look with a critical eye, I have to say I see just as much inconsistency in bad behavior, maladaptive behavior in her life at her age as I do in her son's life. Actually, probably more in her life. And that concerns me because she's got twice the years of life expectancy and should be making better decisions. And to go on the internet and try to create a positivity thing that, I mean, devolved into negativity really quick. Um, but to also apologize for your son bullying people when you actually, like, co-created the Deport Nicole Arbor hashtag thing. It's kind of like, I know you're trying to step on toes, but do you realize you just stepped on your own? And nobody's going to be perfect 100% of the time. We're going to make mistakes. We're human. But to apologize to someone who fraudulently filed false assault claims against your son, that doesn't make sense to me. To apologize to that person, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to apologize to people that have basically been a headhunter and come after your child, when their behavior was just as wrong. And what's the point of going back and apologizing to these people? There has to be a motive. There has to be something trying to be earned. We don't do something unless we're trying to establish or earn something. So my big question is, what are we establishing or earning through this behavior? And why is it now positive when a few months ago it was a negative and you were on his side? And how do you justify that? And then to apologize for bullying while actively bullying, I don't know, it doesn't, I don't know, it just seems very off to me. It's very off to me. Annette says, how can a private schooled woman be in charge of national policy affecting? Hey, there's a lot. Hey, did you see the administrator? What was it? The chief of staff over, oh, who was it? Anyway, it was the male that dresses as a female that was taking flights, not checking a bag, just taking flights so that they could go to the carousel, the luggage carousel, and steal, like, the fashion bags, like the Vera, what is it? Was it Vera Wang or Vera Bra? Which one of the Veras is the really expensive one? I don't know. Anyway, they would not even check a bag, go on a flight, go straight to the luggage carousel off the flight, and then run off with somebody's bag that was worth like $3,000. And then in their defense, they would say, "Oh, well, I thought it was my bag." You didn't check a bag, so there's zero chance you thought that was your bag. And it's just sometimes sometimes people throw out defenses that are absolutely, it's a tale. It's a tale because it's absolutely impossible. And I watch for those a lot. Um, you know, And the internet is not a great way to get to know somebody because people do control what they show and they do steer you toward the personality they want you to think they have. And so a lot of people are very manufactured online. So it's hard to kind of get a baseline for people a lot. But, I always see people and hope for the best. I hope they're not lying. But, we all learn as we go. But I am just as frustrated about the damage all this is causing and how it could have been fixed years and years and years ago. Apparently, it's been a problem for a long time. It could have been repaired. And that's the parent's job. Your job as a parent is to teach your children how to handle themselves, prepare for adulthood, and be able to mesh with society in the most beneficial and positive way possible to be a productive member of that society. So if you see issues, especially repetitive issues, you take action to correct those so that they may have the best adult life possible. And if you're not taking measures to fix repetitive issues, then what are you doing? Because that's like the number one job of a parent. When you see a repeated issue that's going to cause your child anguish or harm in the future, you correct it so that when they become an adult, they have the correct behavior to walk forward into this life with. Now, does it always work? No, it doesn't always work. But normally, in the bigger scheme of things, the bigger lessons tend to work. And I would think that, like cycling through these behaviors, which is basically kind of what everybody's alluding to, when she said Indian giver, which why is like I'm amazed no one has called her on like racial slurs or something yet. Um, but my big thing is we're pointing all this out now, trying to defame him in some way, apparently. But if you really look at it logically, when she says this has gone on forever, which means this has been him forever, well, forever would include when he got famous. He was still a minor when he got famous. Should you not have been working on those skills with your child? What were you doing? Isn't that your job? And if you couldn't have fixed that skill and saw that it was a repetitive issue even back then, should you not have found somebody that could help your family with that? And so what she thought was putting the fault on him was actually also putting the fault on her. Because as a parent, especially of young men, this is going to be the next population of young men. Raise them to be young men. You really, really have to watch for those repetitive, like anger issues that crash down and cause everyone around them grief. That's a red flag, especially at a young age. So was it that she saw it in the kids, or that she saw it just in the family in general, or it doesn't matter. Either way, as a parent, she's responsible to make sure that those children learn a healthier way to be. So I get upset at all this as well because, responsibility, accountability. Well, I mean, we all have issues within our families. But it's eating extra oil. Oh, the names that we see on here. We all have issues within our families, but when three of the four are minors, the person holding responsibility and accountability for that family and for teaching appropriate behaviors and for recognizing inappropriate behaviors in the minors and correcting those behaviors, it goes to the parent. It defaults to the parent. And so, she was trying to say, he's always been like this, but she also told on herself by saying it, I apparently never took steps to improve his ability to handle this behavior very well. So I see two sides to that. That's what I'm saying. You have to look at these different ways. Just like what was the other thing she said? Oh, darn it. Oh, now I've lost my train of thought. But I mean, she told on herself a lot in that little thing, that little blurb she did, that little video, and she was very emotional. And it would have been delivered so much better had she just kind of calmed down and been a little bit more calm and spoken a little bit more slowly and been less emotional. Well, I'm glad you popped in to say hi. I'm just doing a check-in today. There's really no plan for today. I'm just doing a check-in because I've been so sick. But I've had a lot of videos tossed to me with the Ryan Upchurch and Patty situation. And I'm a retired parole officer and counselor and dealt with like the violent male offenders, and then I dealt with teens in state's custody due to trauma and addiction. And so a lot of people like to come and hear my perspective on things now since I'm old and retired due to a disorder like MS. So appreciate you popping in. Might confuse you the first few times you visit, but eventually a lot of people kind of like to visit and have a quiet place to chill and chat for the afternoons or evenings. So appreciate you dropping in. Um, but when you watch somebody have these reactions, thank you, I appreciate that. When you watch somebody have these reactions and behaviors, pay attention to what they say, but also pay attention to what they say says. Now that's confusing, but say it in your brain. There's so much more to the words we choose than just the words we choose. Because the way we say it, the words it kind of shows you how we put that together and what mindset we were in when we put it together. Just like body language can show different sides to us, our word choice can show a different side to us. And so while she's trying to lay blame and she's trying to carefully choose words to lay blame, she's also showing that she's more focused on making him look poorly than realizing I just told everybody my family's had this serious issue for decades, and I, as a parent, overlooked it. So, there are always two sides to, more than two. There's always a million ways to look at something, but there's always multiple ways to look at things and receive the information. And so I think that she needs to become a little bit better at that, because then she was trying to like put the financial burden of writing checks and stuff onto another member of the family. But then she said right after that, I had signed him in as administrator or something other over the account. Well, okay, you're trying to lay the blame on him for writing the checks, but you gave him the power to do so. So if you gave him the power to do so, but did not feed that information back to your employer, sadly, which is your son, you're still in the line of responsibility and accountability. And I don't think she understands that. There's still accountability there. It doesn't just completely shift over to someone else. There's still accountability there. And I don't think that she understands that very well. And so a lot of things that she says in anger or with high emotion to offset the blame, you can then look at and go, oh, because then she ends up telling a whole different side of the story, which normally still shows blame. And she doesn't understand that she's doing that because she's in such an emotional state. She's fixated on, you know, offloading this blame to other people. So I just, it made me unsettled. And yes, as a parent, it frustrated me. And yes, I get just as aggravated as everybody else. But the one thing that is not needed right now is for somebody else to get mad about it and go spout, and scream at people and threaten people because apparently, that's happening to everybody. Even me, I'm getting that, which is crazy because I'm like the most neutral little fat Hindenburg up here trying to say, look at everything. And if you only listen to 3 minutes, you might think I hate Ron, but if you listen to another 3 minutes, you might think I hate Patty. And it's like, I don't hate anybody. I'm just trying to make y'all look at every side because a well balanced perspective is one that's less, going to be less emotional and less able to be emotionally controlled. And so you're a free agent when you can look at things and not get emotional. So I want everybody to be a free agent. I don't want you to feel like you're caught up in somebody else's world. So that's why I do what I do. And I know Ryan shared a video the other night. I don't know why he shared it because by the time I knew that it had been shared, it was gone. So I didn't see any of the comments or the momentum underneath it. I don't know if he shared it because he was upset at something I said, if he shared it because he was wanting other people to listen to what I said. I have no idea. Um, but I hope what I'm doing, at least people that listen, that come here to listen to me, because they gotten to know me over the last few years, and they know that I'm consistent in the way that I view things and try to help you all kind of look at the world. I hope that if they've seen any red flags within their family that mimic what we're seeing within this family, that they've gone, oh crap, I need to go and talk to my family right now, because I don't want whatever's going on in my family to turn into this. I see a red flag. I see a communication issue. I see a respect issue. I see a financial issue. Let's make sure we take care of that, and let's start working toward a better relationship, because I definitely don't want to be here. And so I hope that maybe just, even if one or two people have taken the time to talk to somebody that may have had a misunderstanding, or they knew they needed a better relationship or a better perspective on a relationship because of finances or employment issues. I hope that they've talked to somebody and ironed that out. Because if Ron is going to publicly display all of this, the best thing we can do, as many are just joining aside and running with anger. But the best thing we can do is say, look at this, look at where this behavior and these issues have gotten this family. What can I learn from this so that I don't end up here? Because you learn from your environment, right? Well, the internet, social media has become everybody's like second home. Learn from your environment so that you do not end up in the same mess. And yeah, I know most of us don't have all this money, so we probably never will. But there's good foundational lessons to learn as far as communication, dialogue, respect, understanding aggressive behavior, how that can um, create family hostilities and animosity, and just start talking about it. Because the one thing that families lack in this day and age is communication. Speaking of this, let me tell you about this new thing that I just found out. Oh my gosh. So, y'all know, I used to counsel kids in state's custody, but I used to do individual counseling for foster families. Now, the government, who funds foster care basically, has said, oh yes, and foster families will also, now they funded foster families saying that a child needs to be in a family environment, especially if they've had a negative past issue in their family. They need to be in a strong family environment rather than in state's custody. If they're conducive to being that in a family environment, all they need to be in one. Okay, I agree. A child is always better in a family environment as opposed to a facility environment. I agree with that 110%. Now, here's my problem. Okay, we've given federal funding how many years? Because they've created all these federal programs to help the family. Take your child to this counselor for free, see this therapist for free. Problem at home, don't talk to your kid like a normal family. Take them to a professional. And so parents don't talk to the children anymore. They think, oh, I've got to take my child to a stranger that's a professional. As one of those people that used to be the stranger that was the professional, let me tell you, the first fence that you have to run through should be your family coming around that child with love and trying to understand what's going on. And then you go from there. But we've gotten to where, oh, the government's going to fix everything, so take them to that federally funded therapist. And it's just strange to me, but a lot of parents do this. Now, the federal government, who is funding foster care because kids need to be in family environments, just changed their whole foundation and said, oh, by the way, parents that are foster parents, we're going to also pay for daycare. To which my initial response was, wait, so now you can be paid to be a foster parent while you work a full-time job? And my thought was, how can you parent these kids if you're working a full-time job, especially kids when you've got more than one, that have emotional issues or abuse histories or trauma, histories and addiction issues? You're not going to have the time that this child needs. You specifically put them in foster care because they're not getting what they need at home. They're in a deficit when it comes to support, love, and care. And you put them in a home because you want them to have that support, love, and care. And that's why you pay foster parents to foster these children and show them a positive home life. So how can they do that if they're also working a full-time job? But then the other person I was talking to said, oh, no, 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 honey, it's worse than that. She said, what we're seeing is that many of the foster parents are not even choosing to get a secondary job. They're just sending the kids to daycare so they don't have to deal with them. They'll sit at home and do whatever they do all day. Which, don't get me wrong, home's a chore. You know, taking care of a home is business. It's a lot of work. It's a business. You run a business at home. But if you signed on to be a foster parent, you knew what you were going to be doing. You knew that there was going to be trauma, and you're going to be a healing part of someone's life, and you're going to have to work at that. And it was going to take a lot of you to do it. It infuriates me to think that now these foster parents, I guess you could probably do a poll. Anyone that takes a foster child and then immediately sends them to daycare, but yet doesn't get a job and stays at home and is just pawning that kid out on someone else, I would question their ability to be a really good foster parent. Now, I could see sending that kid a day or so a week for socialization and stuff like that, for those kind of skills. That's fine. But to take advantage of the daycare program while taking advantage of being a foster parent, getting paid for providing care for that child, but then now the daycare is providing care for that child. That I'm curious to see what this creates in our foster care children, what behaviors this creates. It's not going to be good because we got kids that need 24/7 mama hen families just on top of them to help them through or to help them process whatever they're going through. And the last place I would have wanted many of my foster kids that I counseled to be would be in a daycare where they once again feel like a number, one among the many that is getting a reduced effort from the adults they meet. So, anxious to see what this creates in the world. Don't think it's going to be anything positive at all. Oh, you're right. They're looking for people to house them, and that's the saddest thing is that when I did counseling, probably 80% of the foster parents that I met, I really didn't think had the ambition to truly do the job of being a foster parent. They were just looking at these kids as income, and that hurt my heart every day because the kids knew it. The kids are way smarter than anyone else in the scenario. They've been through it. They understand it. They see it. And if I feel that hurt as an outsider seeing this, how does that child feel? It's a very bad setup. It's a very bad setup. One again, I would say that families and finances and employment, it just creates a very bad place. And while it's not the same as what Ron and Patty, it's very similar. We're muddying the water of emotional sustenance based on financial support. And I think anytime you mix the two in any way, it's bad. It's just bad. So I'm going to be reading up on any research or data studies that's going to be monitoring this new setup with foster care. Because I don't believe it's going to do anything positive for these kids in foster care. I think it's going to make the deficits even more pronounced for these children. And we're going to start seeing possibly a more aggressive or even hostile form of young adult or elder juvenile or young adult because of this. So that's something for y'all to keep your eye on as well. So I guess that's a good discussion of today's topics. That's kind of where my head's been. I've got a lot of feedback wanting to know, aren't you upset about, yeah, I'm upset about a lot of stuff I see in the Ron and Patty stuff. Mostly I'm upset that there's a family falling apart that can't even understand that they're falling apart because they're so rage filled right now they can't understand what's going on. And by the time they step back and understand what they've lost, it may be too late to fix it. That's sad. That's sad for any family. And so I feel bad for everyone in the scenario. That's why I'm saying, you shouldn't really pick a team. Everyone here is hurting. They're hurting in different ways. And so while I definitely have kind of more of a suspect view on some of the things that Patty has said, I still don't want anybody to send her nasty messages or death threats or, go after her online or threaten her in person. That's just stupid. That's so unnecessary. Doesn't do anything positive for anyone, and it's just counterproductive behavior that we've become accustomed to. We need to shift that and change. Oh yeah, well anything over what in my state, anything over 500 to 1,000, depending on what realm it lies in within property or drugs or anything else. It runs into felony. So misdemeanor court is a drop in the bucket because there's so few things that are so small that they actually stay in misdemeanor court. Most of them roll over to criminal court as soon as the price sticker's applied. Um, so yeah, but a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know how the courts are structured, what the jobs are. They don't understand real estate law. And I've taken real estate law classes and taken a lot of law classes and of course worked in the system for a long time. And there's still stuff I don't know, but I do have a more educated perspective when compared to to most. Oh, Annette, thank you. I'm feeling much better today, but I know I'm still very sick. And I'm still very sore and swollen and having problems from this flare. And because it swelled and has allowed my insides of my back and spine and pelvis to be affected, it worries me a lot more. So I'm just trying to really stay in bed and stay quiet and not do a lot and heal. It's sad when your disorder causes you physical harm. Like we think that either this is from like the injections I've had and it's just finally kind of appeared, or my flares have caused damage to where this hematoma has appeared. We don't know which yet. We're just watching and hoping that I heal. So I'm just really trying to be quiet and calm and let my body heal. Taking this grocery shopping. I've been grocery shopping with a few people here in the last few weeks. Um, so yeah, I think that's all I want to talk about. I think I'm done. I don't have the energy I normally have, so I think I'm done for the day. But watch the Ohio train story. Watch this foster care story as it grows, or it should grow, or if it doesn't grow, that's an even more concerning issue. Make sure that you're looking at your local, state, and national news, and also make sure that you're like trying to jump over and read another country's news from time to time, just to stay aware of what's going on elsewhere. And when you look at things, try to look at it with a bunch of perspectives instead of just one. And don't hate people that can step back and go around the table and see everybody's plight, and recognize everybody's struggle. You know, that is a healthy trait. And that's a good skill for our younger generations to relearn because it's been lost the last couple of generations. Is just to realize is this nation is made up of a group of people and not just the person we see in the mirror, and we have to care about others and we have to think about others and we have to understand others' perspectives and others' motivations. And that normally doesn't come in the two emotions we allowed ourselves to have, which are love and hate. We have reduced society to a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and it terrifies me because there's so much in between, and that's where we live. We don't live in absolute love or absolute hate. We live in the middle, but we're reducing our society to these two polarized opponents, and nothing that is a polarization effect ever survives. It just depletes itself from opposite sides. And so I'm just like, have a healthier perspective. Yeah, like I'm probably 80% in Ryan's back pocket on this situation. I think he's had more wrong done to him than he's done to others. But I can still look at him and say I see things I want him to work on. And I think that's healthy. I think that's how we should be with each other. So that's what I'm saying. It depends on what 3 minutes you catch of my streams, as opposed, if you'll like me or not, or whose side you'll think I'm on. And I really appreciate the people that listen to the whole thing and then come back and they go, for about 10 minutes I wondered, and then I was like, oh, I get it. So I appreciate everybody that hangs on and listens. Okay, thank you. I'm doing the best I can, Fang, I promise. I am trying to keep myself in a healing mindset, and I'm doing a lot better. Instead of the whole pelvis and back being inflamed and swollen, now I'm basically over to my right side where the hematoma is in the back. So I think it's like shrinking, and we can identify what was going on now, and it's healing. But I'm telling you, this is the worst, I guess, injury that this has ever caused me. And it's probably just my muscles pulling, because when they contract and they freeze, lots of times they'll pull away and they'll pull something loose from a bone, or they'll pull the muscle itself into a configuration to where it will like knot and cause a hematoma. And so I'm having a lot of issues. But I started a new physical therapy program, made a lot of changes in the last couple of months. And so my body is just not in a good, easy place right now. I'm pushing it. And I understand I'm pushing it, but I'm pushing it so that in the future I can walk and do more for a longer amount of years. And but this is really a struggle lately. So if you can toss up prayers, toss them up, because since Friday, I have been in quite a bit of pain and not always understood why I'm having it. And even my doctor has been like, should we just go ahead and toss you in for observation? But the sad thing is I live in rural Tennessee, and the closest hospital swears they have no beds, even though they have like half the hospital empty. They just didn't put it in the budget to hire nurses this year, which boggles my mind. So for me to go to another facility is like, 2.5, 3 hours away. And so we start looking at, that's one of those, we only do it if we absolutely have to. So I'm trying to get through this home. I've got home nursing that comes out and does checks. And I've got my physical therapy team that comes out. And so they're keeping a close eye on me. In the last 2 days, I've had a nurse here each day and to check on me. So they're keeping a close eye on me. And, all my blood pressure stuff is holding good. And I'm not running a fever. I'm just having a lot of swelling and a lot of what the crap caused this damage. And I hope it heals. And this disorder is so underfunded for research. No one understands it. It's such an enigma. And I wish that we had more scientists and doctors studying it. But I have signed paperwork for all of my records and that they have gotten for being during all this observation to be used as educational tools. So I'm like, if you have training or speeches, or if it's come together for seminars, use my stuff. Go right ahead. If it's going to help somebody, use it. And so I'm really hoping that this is going to help someone down the line with what, to see what I'm going through. Annette says she saw a vlog of a girl who lives near there. She tried to put out on TikTok, but was pulled for false info. Oh my gosh, really? Sad. Yeah, help is so far away. It is. Like, we have ambulances and we have a chopper. That's what we have here if anybody has a medical emergency. And me and my husband pay the fee every year to have a contract with the Aerovac team in case we ever get Aerovac'd out. That it won't cost us $50,000. We pay each year to have a contract so that we can be flown out just for the contract fee. But it's sad when you live in a place where everybody else has all these federally funded programs and aid, and then you live in a place that should, like, we have a hospital that was just shut down. And so if you ask me, I don't know how to say this without getting flagged by YouTube. If you ask me, our nation is slowly retracting the aid that has become the norm, but they're doing it in places where no one will notice it until it's so much of it has been pulled that it cannot be reversed. So it's happening in the rural areas and the low population places that are used to hardships. And so we don't talk about it a lot. But I'm starting to see aid be pulled from larger towns, larger facilities are shutting down. And I see it's like watching the tide go out. And I'm like, is this the plan? Is this what they want to happen? Yeah, Fang. There's a lot of wisdom there. People need to read that a few times. Oh, I absolutely think we're guinea pigs, or as I say, guinea hogs. Yeah, I absolutely think we're guinea pigs. Yeah, and lots of times, like when I do go to the closest ER due to like a true, like really serious emergency, then I have to basically educate them about my disorder that they have no idea even exists, and then tell them what normally helps to treat whatever problem I'm presenting with that day, so that they can do that and then bill me thousands of dollars for having basically me show up and treat myself. It's stupid. It's stupid. And I've only run across two doctors that have ever been educated in college in medical school about my disorder. And of course, we get the doctors that are on the routes they get put on a shuffle routine across rural areas, and so they're not there long enough to establish a rapport with the patient or to establish an understanding with the patient. They're just there to fulfill their contract and move and shuffle and get their hours in so that they can then say, I've had X amount of years doing this and build a practice upon it. And so we get a lot of that here. So a lot of the doctors I never even get to see twice, and that's frustrating. If I think it is the plan. It's sad. It is the plan. But it is. If you're in Appalachia or you're in other poor areas, like watching the tide go out, we see it going. Nobody else sees it yet. It hasn't passed you yet, but it's fully gone from us. It no longer exists here. So, I guess if anybody's paying attention in the cities, it's coming your way. Pay attention. Um, but yeah, it's been since Friday. I've had a lot of time to think because I've been stuck in bed, and that's the best way to describe it is the tide's going out. So there's a few stories for you to think on and talk about and discuss with your friends and families, and just get in there and have a good chew the fat discussion with somebody. And remember that if you can go and physically meet with somebody or be with somebody for that energy swap, go and meet with people. Go and interpersonally connect with people. That's good. It recharges your battery. We're herd animals. We're supposed to be around each other. So go and make a connection. Go and feel that connection as opposed to staying on social media all the time. And as someone who's bedbound and disabled and stuck at home a lot, I implore you to seek out those physical connections because they are worth their weight in gold. And you don't understand that until you cannot leave your home. Then it really makes a whole lot more sense. So take care of each other, be good to each other, try to find 3 things every day to be thankful for, and try to say prayers or send out good energy for at least 3 people before you go to bed every night. It will keep you humble. And if you are looking at something with a polarizing emotion, take a step back and understand that the emotion is a vehicle. Get out of that vehicle and get in another. And one of the best ones to get into is simply just kind of being objective and taking a step back and seeing as many sides or points to an interaction as possible, as opposed to seeing the emotions. Look at the actions. Look at the actions that are being displayed. Look at the statements being made, and then follow up in 2 to 3 weeks. Has this person created a change? Have they heeded their own advice? Have they improved upon themselves from 2, 3 weeks ago. Have that objective eye, and an eye of discernment where, you know, you understand if someone is a positive force or a negative force or an indifferent force. Make sure that you're putting quality people and quality videos and quality YouTube channels into your world because, there's a lot of crap. And as humans, we can only filter so much. And so we need to try to find as many positive interactions as opposed to negative interactions because I think as a society, our filters are clogged. And to let them kind of clean and learn to circulate again, I think we need to try to always be on the positive side and seek out those positive people, places, and things. So that would be what I would tell you to do. And I'm going to try to make another lap around the house, and I'm walking like Tim Conway right now, which if you're a Carol Burnett fan, you're laughing. I'm walking like Tim Conway right now. I'm going to try to make another circle around the house and check on the porch to see how much has blown off the porch already, because the winds here are horrible. And try to chug some more water and then nestle back down for a nap because my body is just not having it today. So I appreciate everybody for spending time with me, and it'll probably be a few more days for hear from me again because I'm just healing. So appreciate the messages, the direct messages, the emails, and sending me links for stuff so I can kind of check up on the highlights. Thank you so much. And I'll catch you in a few days and we'll do this again. Bye, guys.